Hi, my name is Rose Fush, or otherwise known on Instagram as Money Saving Rosie, but I'm not going to be talking about money saving or anything like that today. I'm actually going to be talking about the process of being pregnant. I'm not going to be talking about the actual ins and outs of pregnancy. I am going to do a video about the first trimester. If it's already there, the link will be down below. But I thought I'd talk about the actual process of being pregnant through the NHS and what you might experience at each appointment. And if you have, like me, health anxiety, you don't like going to the doctors because you don't like not knowing what's going to happen at each appointment. You don't like knowing, well, you don't like not knowing. Whether it's because you don't like blood tests or you just don't like the unknown, I'm here to kind of answer a few of those questions. And I'm going to be working my way from the very first week to about week 28. So that is the third trimester, mainly because I'm currently 30 weeks pregnant, so obviously can't comment on the weeks going forward because I haven't yet experienced them. While we're here, we might as well do a bump shot. There he is, all his glory. If you're like me, I am someone who really doesn't like going into a situation without being completely armed. I like to know everything that's going to happen at that moment. So childbirth's going to be quite interesting because obviously the whole point of the day is you just genuinely don't know what is going to happen. But during pregnancy, there's not a lot of kind of bedside manner in the way of helping people who have never gone through pregnancy before or gone through the procedure of all of these different appointments and what they mean and why you're going to them and what you're doing them for. You can feel a little bit like, I don't know, a vessel. You don't really feel like a person at some stages. You just feel a little bit like a thing that's got a thing in you. But I'm here to dispel any issues you have and just answer some questions that you might be wondering at each stage. You might find yourself not pregnant at all. You might have recently found out you're pregnant and this is something you're watching to try and arm yourself in the coming weeks for all of the different checks and things you're doing. Just to make you aware as well, this is what I've experienced at my own hospital in the northwest of England and also partially during COVID times. So there might be a few things that will vary. Obviously, year on year, these things will change. But this is my account of how things, as they are right now, go. By the way, the sun is going in and out, so the light is just there. Also, this is my pregnancy, which will obviously vary from yours. There might be different checks and different things that I might exclude just because I haven't experienced them, and I'm not going to pretend that I know everything about everything. If you're not sure on anything, obviously always talk to your midwife or doctor, but I'm just giving my account of what I've experienced up until the 28th week of pregnancy. So if you're not aware, the first 2 weeks, well, around 2 weeks, are actually just getting pregnant. The first day of the first week is actually just the first day of the last period you had. And you then count up to around 2 weeks to 18 days, something like that. And that should indicate when you ovulate and when you can get pregnant. My friend recommended an app called Glow, which actually has an ovulation tracker. So you just put in your details of when you had your last period and you just go through a calendar and then it will tell you your likelihood of getting pregnant on each day if you do try. It will tell you to pay for like certain articles and certain elements like checking your temperature and things, and obviously down the line, if that's something you want to try, if you've been trying for a few months or a year or so, then obviously look into that. But personally for me, we didn't need to pay and we seemed to get the job done. After this 2 week period, I could tell I was pregnant from about 7 days post ovulation. As I say, I'm going to do a video of symptoms week by week and all the information will be in there. But I could tell from a very early stage that that was something that I was experiencing, and it was different from a period. It was just something else. But I wasn't sure obviously until I did the tests, which I did about 9 days post ovulation, and that basically confirmed everything. Just to let you know, you don't, unless you want to literally get the digital test that says pregnant and for the ceremoniousness of it, you don't really need to get the branded tests. You can actually just go to Home Bargains, Poundland, and just get the 2 for £1 ones, because they're all doing the same job, which is trying to pick up the same hormone that's in your wee. So you really don't need to spend a lot of money to find out the same result. By this point, I've been taking pregnancy tests about every 12 hours or so, from 10 days post to around 14 days post. So at that point, when I was pretty sure and the lines were getting darker and I was like, yeah, I'm pregnant, that's when I made an appointment to call my GP surgery. From there, I spoke to my doctor, and the appointment was basically, I think I'm pregnant, I've done these tests, I've been tracking, and I believe that I am pregnant. Within my appointment, it was only over the phone because of COVID times, but we basically went through everything, like trying to estimate when the due date was. We went through safety procedures of things that I need to be aware of now if I am pregnant. So certain foods that I'm allowed, certain drinks I'm not allowed, mainly alcohol and coffee. They're also going to recommend who is going to be looking after your course of treatment, and whether it's a matter of them referring you to their own hospital depending on the area you live in, or whether it's a matter of speaking to the hospital yourself. In the area I live in, I have to speak to the hospital, so they gave me the number to call in which to get the ball rolling and to speak to them about, you know, having my initial appointments, which will then lead on to my scans and everything else going forward. Just to make you aware, this is very normal for them. Like, they talk to pregnant people all day, every day. So if you're kind of expecting a bit of fanfare or someone to say congratulations, don't, because no one really is going to give you that at any stage of pregnancy or anything. So please don't be disheartened if you're speaking to someone and they're just very matter of fact about your pregnancy, because this is just something they deal with all the time. I then called that number and gave her the details that my doctor had estimated for the gestation, which is a word you're going to hear a lot, for basically how long I've been pregnant for and when I'm due to have the baby. They'll then get back in touch with you and explain around week 8 or 9, you're going to have something called a booking in appointment. Now, a booking in appointment is the very first opportunity you get to meet your medical team from the hospital in which, or wherever you're getting, having your baby. And in this appointment, they're going to go through your maternal medical history, your medical history, what medications you're on, what conditions you currently have, your mental health, as well as a myriad of different questions that relate to the tracking of your pregnancy. So basically, between when you find out you're pregnant and that booking in appointment, there's nothing. There's no communication other than you get a letter, which is what I got, which is my booking in appointment. You'll get a lot of things through the post as well, which is very NHS anyway. During that 4-week period, I would definitely recommend speaking to a friend you can trust or that family member that you can talk to about your pregnancy and let them know. It might even be someone in work, whether it is your boss. You do have to tell your employer from 15 weeks, but it is worth telling them sooner, because if for whatever reason you have to take time off due to being pregnant, they can't discriminate against that time. It is worth letting them know, because if there's something where, for example, there was a lot of heavy lifting I couldn't do, there was a lot of different tasks that I wasn't able to perform, and it felt really awkward not telling them and also being lethargic and going through all the other symptoms I was experiencing. So it's up to you. You don't have to tell them. If it's something where you'd feel more comfortable telling them later down the line, that's up to you. But for me, it was something I felt more comfortable doing. So the app that I used, Glow, it then recommended, because I got pregnant and updated the app and said I'm now pregnant, it recommended another app called Nurture, which is really good in the way of telling you how far along your pregnancy is, which as an app is okay. It's free. Again, they give you so many articles and you're so eager to read and find out the development and what's going on and when the heartbeat starts and viability at each stage. But unfortunately, the other people that are reading the article also comment. So you are unfortunately looking at lots of forum entries of people at the exact same stage of pregnancy as you, probably suffering the exact same anxieties, worries and issues, that are just kind of battling it out. And also sometimes they're kind of over exaggerating their symptoms or kind of scaring you, and it really didn't help me reading those kinds of things, especially being an emetophobe and reading like, oh, I've been throwing up 5 times today, I can't go near this, I can't go near that. Obviously, you know, I'm here talking to you, like, the internet is great, everyone has a right to vent and say these things, but sometimes, especially if you're an anxious person, they're not always what you need to hear. So you have to be so mindful of consuming the right things. Again, I would not go anywhere near One Born Every Minute clips, Emma Willis midwife shows or anything. I really would steer clear of any pregnancy content for that time. And I know it's really hard because that's all you want to consume. You just want to find out about what it's like being pregnant. But believe me, probably the best thing you can do is maybe look at some diaries on YouTube. Even in my own Instagram, you are more than welcome to message me. I know that obviously I'm posting this out quite wide, but I've had people message me where they haven't told their friends and family yet, and they want to talk to someone about pregnancy. They want to express their issues and worries. It's definitely worth speaking to someone who's a bit further along than you, than someone who's at the exact same stage. All you're going to do is exchange the same anxieties and just make yourself feel worse. So as I say, you have that letter, and for me, my appointment was over the phone. It generally is around an hour long in total, and if you are at the stage where you're actually doing these appointments in person because of post-COVID times, you are likely going to have the physical element of your test as well. This consists of various blood tests. This is to find out your blood type, whether you have certain illnesses, anemia, other conditions as well. But they'll also measure your height, they'll measure your weight, and they'll jot it all down in this, which is something you'll also be issued in your booking in appointment. Now this folder is something you are going to carry with you until the very end, my friend. It has all these different sections. This is what mine looks like. Yours might look completely different. And it has antenatal, delivery, and any of your scan notes for any of your scans going forward, basically. They're going to jot all the information down in there, and your blood test results will be present in your 16-week appointment. Obviously, if something were to come up a bit earlier, then they will let you know. For example, if you're anemic or if you have any other issues that they need to make you aware of that you weren't already. But generally, they're not going to tell you anything until that appointment. Also be aware that every appointment you are going to go to, you need to supply a urine sample. So please don't have a wee before you go anywhere, or maybe optionally you can bring your own urine sample. You can go to your local pharmacy and ask for urine pots, or even to your local GP and ask if you can have a selection of urine pots just for going forward, because most of the time, I'd say every single appointment, you are likely going to give someone a pot of your wee. So just be aware that that is something that you're going to do, because I went to that appointment for my blood test and nowhere did it say that I needed to supply a urine sample, and I got there and I didn't need to wee, and it was so stressful, and I was trying to down water, and it was just a whole thing. It didn't matter in the end, but it's just really good to know. Just come with a full bladder when you go somewhere. Just come needing a wee, or at least come with a little pot of wee. No one's going to judge you for having a pot of wee. So you've had your booking in appointment, you're going through your first trimester symptoms, but generally everything is going okay. You'll next receive a letter with details about your dating scan. So that is your 12-week scan that you'll be having, and it'll either be at a dedicated hospital. Mine, again, because of the way it's operated, it was all within the one vicinity. I was very lucky because I was able to bring my husband and he could come to the scans, and there's a few bits of information they need to make you aware of prior to coming to the scans. One of them is that obviously you arrive on time to make sure that there's enough time to book you in and everything, but also to make sure that your bladder is full. The thing is, from my experience, having had a small scan prior to my 12-week dating scan and my 20-week scan, you don't need to come with a bladder quite as full as what they tell you. Honestly, you don't need to fill up quite as much as they say. You'll worry you do, but really you don't. I'd recommend emptying your bladder about an hour before, and then having equivalent to a bottle of water up to about half an hour before, just because I ended up having to go for a wee. The amount of people I know that end up having to go for a wee midway through because they couldn't get the measurements right because the bladder was too full, and it's really uncomfortable when your bladder is too full. So I just go and have a full bottle of water and then just go from there. So in that scan, if you're able to bring your partner, the room's quite dimly lit and you'll be laying on a bed with a small cushion and obviously all of the tissues there. You'll then, I'd recommend wearing a vest and maybe jeans, or something like a vest or a t-shirt with a pair of jeans or some leggings. Maybe not a skirt and tights or anything, because there's a lot of like jiggery pokery going on. They'll then get some paper and tuck them into your trousers and put some gel onto your stomach that is very cold. It just feels like a kind of jelly going onto your stomach. And then they'll press into your stomach to establish where your pregnancy is in your body. In the room there is a screen with your scan actually there, so you'll be able to see it projected onto this screen with your partner or whoever's with you sat next to you. Please don't be disheartened if they literally need a minute to find the baby, because at this stage your baby is the size of a lime. It might be on the left side, it might be on the right side, he might be floating around doing his own thing, so please don't be disheartened if they have to establish where your baby is first before actually projecting it on the screen. So don't be too worried if the first thing you see isn't your baby just on the screen there. Again, like I say, it's all business for them. They just want to establish that your baby is healthy. So if you have any questions about during the scan whether sizing's right, about what they're doing, I'd recommend waiting to the end because they're going to be so focused. You can obviously talk to your partner and whoever you're with and just speculate, but it's a really joyous time, and just try and soak it in because it really is fun and you only get to do it a handful of times, especially the 12-week scan. So just try and enjoy that time. After the scan, I actually went to have another blood test. I didn't need to produce a urine sample that day, but I did receive some literature when I got my letter, and that was about the screening for Down syndrome and chromosome 13 and 18. These are developmental issues that they like to test for and make you aware of, and they tell you the probability of your child having those conditions. Obviously, it can alter your pregnancy. For a lot of people, they continue with the pregnancy. For other people, they might decide to not continue with the pregnancy. It just gives parents that option to know what their moves and choices are. I decided I wanted to know, so I went for a small blood test after the scan, and as I say, it was very straightforward, but I did make them aware that I wasn't quite prepared for a blood test. I don't know why I assumed it was going to be another day, another time, but it was all within that same space. I'd recommend bringing something sugary or maybe something sweet to eat, just to ensure that if you are going to have a blood test and you've got that wait period, just have something in your stomach just to ensure your blood sugar levels aren't too low. Okay, so you've had your 12-week scan. You might have shared the news with other members of your friends and family and might be feeling elated that that is all out in the open. But from here, there's again a little bit of a lag, a little bit of a wait until you actually go and see a community midwife. You're also coming out of your first trimester, so I imagine, especially by about week 14, you're going to be feeling an awful lot better. Your appetite's going to be performing better and your energy levels will have improved as well. Just to let you know, for me, it wasn't something where my 16-week appointment, like my booking appointment, was something that they told me when and where it was. I actually had to call up my GP surgery and arrange an appointment with my community midwife. So don't presume that by week 16 an appointment's in the bag for you. You kind of have to call in advance and get that arranged yourself. You might not, but it is worth inquiring to see whether you need to. I then met with my community midwife, and again, in my 16-week appointment, I produced a little pot of whey, and during the testing process, they're actually seeing whether you have things like protein, blood, and other things in your wee as well. Sometimes if they feel like it might be infected, they will send it off for a test just to see whether there's something they need to diagnose or give you antibiotics for. My 16-week appointment didn't include the baby having their heartbeat checked, but I did have my heart monitored and a few other like minor checks. I think I had a temperature check as well from memory. It's also a great opportunity for you to ask your midwife questions about anything you're not sure of, whether it might be dietary or any other issues you might have had in terms of what you're experiencing during this stage of your pregnancy. The next scan you may have is called the anatomy scan, and I received a letter through the post which gave me the details of that scan, which was in the same location as my very first 12-week scan. Now, unlike the first scan, which is around 15 minutes, this scan can be 30 minutes up to 45 minutes, quite an extensive scan, and similar process where you lay back, you lower you hoist up your top and lower your trousers, and they do all of the same thing of establishing your baby, where it is, and the heartbeat as well. As I say, this scan is very extensive, so please don't be worried again if your technician is taking the time. They are going through every little bit of your baby's body, because that is what they're there for. They need to know whether everything's developing right, the organs, skeleton, and everything else to do with how your baby's development is going. A little recommendation I have for this scan is to eat. So for example, my scan was like 10:30 in the morning. I'd recommend having quite an early breakfast, and then just before you go into your scan, having a nice cold fizzy drink. It can even just be fizzy water. It doesn't necessarily have to be sugary. That way your baby is going to be so active and moving. They love when they have a cold drink. It really gets them going, it gets them wriggling. So I would definitely recommend doing that if you want to see a bit more action. Mine was full and he was just sleeping, so we weren't able to see a few things straight away. So I would definitely recommend that. You're not necessarily told as well quite how much you need to drink prior to that. So I wouldn't go with a completely empty bladder, but equally I wouldn't go with a really full one either. Just have your fizzy drink and then that should probably be about enough. This is also the scan in which they can tell you the sex of the baby. And it is up to you whether you want to find out. You can go through the whole pregnancy without knowing. It's just a little detail though they put in your scan results. So I'll see if I can block out some details, but you can see they go through all of the measurements of all of the baby there. So depending on your hospital or where you're having your scan, it might not be possible for them to write down in a little piece of paper the sex of the baby. You can actually go for a private scan at 16 weeks if you really wanted to find out what you're having. But if you wait until the 20th week, you can ask them to put it in your notes, and very nicely our technician actually wrote down the sex of the baby and folded it over, so it meant that we could find out the sex at a later date or later on that day. If something does come up during this scan, they would probably recommend another scan anywhere between 24 weeks and 28 weeks just to ensure what they're looking at, whether it's placenta location, whether it's the size of one organ to another. It's just to check the development and the progress of how that's going. Unless blood tests revealed anything in particular, or you need to go for a gestational diabetes test, which is something I've not gone for, but there is extensive information. Even just on TikTok, people have posted some amazing resources of just showing what is involved with a gestational diabetes test. A gestational diabetes test is basically where you have a blood test, having fasted, then drink a very sugary drink, and then have another blood test, and it sees how your body reacts to that sugary drink and whether you have gestational diabetes. So if this is your first baby, you have an appointment with your midwife about 25 weeks, and this is again for them to check on the progress of your growth and how everything is going. At this appointment, again, bring a little pot of wee or a little sample, or obviously go a little bit earlier and ask your doctors if they can provide you with a cup to provide a sample. They're going to check your blood pressure, the size of your stomach, so you're going to lay back on the table and they're going to measure your stomach from top to bottom, and they'll tell you how far along your baby is progressing in terms of its growth. Another important item to get from your midwife that week is a MAT B1 form, and that is a form in which you need to issue your employer. So basically you can make the formal application if you're in the kind of job that does that, of getting maternity pay and leave. If you're self-employed like myself, or if you are in receipt of benefits, this form is also very useful because that enables you to get different benefits associated with pregnancy. Also during your 25-week appointment, either during the appointment or they will maybe issue you to go to maybe a blood test centre or wherever else. It depends how your hospital operates, but you will likely have an anemia test. I just said yes to everything just because it made me feel like if I can arm myself with all the information I can to, you know, if I have low iron levels and I can change that or take whatever I need to take, then I might as well find out rather than not know. Something I thought I'd mention, which I realised I kind of brushed over, is having vaccines during this time. I've been pregnant well over winter, so I was put forward for having my flu jab, and I think I had that around week 10. And if I'm honest, I'm someone, weirdly, although I have my health issues and hate hospitals and hate everything, needles and vaccinations don't really bother me too much. I didn't find the flu vaccine hurt all that bad, and afterwards the recovery was pretty straightforward. Didn't really even have a fever or any other issues, but it might be something that occurs with you. Just give yourself a bit of a wide berth and, you know, just treat yourself the next day. My midwife did recommend on my 16-week appointment to have my whooping cough vaccine, and I will say that was a different experience than my flu jab. Again, not trying to scare anyone, I just want to inform you and make you aware of the differences and what you can experience, but I found my whooping cough vaccine to be quite not the nicest experience, really. The actual vaccine itself was very small, but I will say it was quite painful. The lady that administered it said this is gonna hurt, and it did. I would recommend having it in the arm that is not your dominant arm, because I found I could barely lift my arms up. It was really quite painful, and I did start to feel feverish the next day and just not myself and not all that well. But the day after I felt okay, and I really would recommend getting something that can help you and your unborn baby, because they can't defend themselves. So that's my opinion on vaccines anyway. I'm not going to go too much further into it because I know people have their opinions. So obviously from week 28 to week 40, however long I go, we just, you know, I could literally have 6 weeks to go. We just don't know at this stage. But beyond that, I'm more than happy to provide something down the line that issues what you're going to experience at your appointments from 28 weeks to 40 odd. Let's see, I just don't know how long I'll be pregnant for. I hope this video helped, and if you have any questions, any reservations, or want to find out any more about this time, please drop me a little comment, or you can message me directly on Instagram. It'd be nice if you subscribe, that's really cool too. And until next time, have a happy and healthy pregnancy. Bye.